Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Fitted Health and Fitness Summit. I'm here with my friend Sarah Rhodes. How are you today, my friend?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me here.
I just wanted to share a story with you how I met you originally and how I came in contact with you and why I wanted to bring you into this fitness summit, this virtual fitness summit. I met you through one of my great mates, Ben Murray. And I always saw you guys at a party, and I remember being at a party in I think it was the Golden Sheaf. I think that's when I first met you, and you're pretty quiet. You were pretty quiet then, and just chilled out, relaxed type of girl, and we started chatting. And there was no ego about what you were doing at all. And we started chatting. You had a really, I realized he had a really successful personal training business in Sydney, and I would never have known it. Like especially in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, where there's a lot of ego around there, having to show off and stuff like with personal training. I was probably one of them. so, and then you were a really humble character, and I remember sitting down. It was only a few weeks ago where we really clicked a lot more. And we were sitting over breakfast and we had a couple of coffees together, and we were chatting about health and fitness and where you see things going in the fitness industry, your background story a lot more. And I thought, wow, I've got to get this girl on the summit. It's such a wealth of knowledge. So welcome on board, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's really awesome, and everything that you're doing with this is incredible. So it's great to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. So I just wanted to share with you, just ask you why you entered the fitness industry.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it never was something that I thought that I would get into. I come from a more corporate background, always fairly fit and stuff when I was younger, all the team sports and stuff through school. And then for me, like, you and I had a chat the other weekend. Like so many young girls, had body issues and concerns and all those sorts of things. So at about the age of 14, started to slip into an eating disorder. So it would change the reason behind training and all those sorts of things, because it obviously was um, because of my self worth and how I was feeling about myself. So I wanted to look a certain way.
Mm.
And then through that, the end result, me getting into the fitness industry as I've gotten older, was coming out the other side of an eating disorder and working and all the 9 to 5 sort of job and all that sort of thing, and realized that it was a passion and I'd completely changed my life, and it was something that I wanted to chase and be a part of to help other women and men, sort of help them through their own journey in any way, shape, or form. But specifically, it's now sort of moving in the direction of being able to help women, especially with eating and sort of the food psychology side of things, and coaching through that, because it is such a big part of the fitness industry. Unfortunately, and the modern day world, I think it's 1 in 3 young girls have an eating disorder, or sort of go into that space. So it's pretty awesome that there is so many people in the industry now sort of moving towards changing, the ego and all the BS in it, because it's being a bit more exposed now, which is awesome, and having people to support you through that, I think is huge. And so for me, being able to be a part of that, it was never about going in and training or being a PT. It's sort of just formed and evolved into being a part of a great industry that is changing and moving.
Yeah, and I'm really really grateful that it is. You hit the nail on the head there. It's the sort of people are seeing through the BS now, and it's not just about the way you look anymore. It's the way you think. It's the way you eat. It's all of it. So, and that touches on my next question on when you have this eating disorder. So why do you think these eating disorders are coming up? Why is 1 in 3 people or 1 in 3 girls having eating disorders?
It's such a massive topic. Like, you and I could honestly speak about it for hours.
Yeah.
And it's a grey area. And the biggest thing is you're talking about humans, and it's emotional.
Yeah.
It goes from the marketing, it goes, you look at billboards and without even realizing it, the amount of, the gloss and the cover of it all, and people being basically told, even though it's not said, that they have to fit into a box. And then it's the world has evolved into social media and these platforms, which they're amazing in so many ways. We get to do this sort of stuff and have a conversation, and it gives everybody a platform, whether big superstars or the average person, to have a platform to have a discussion. And there is lots of really amazing things that are happening with social media, but it's also a lot of BS. I sort of feel for a lot of these young girls, and I'm working with quite a few at the moment, that's their struggle. They're seeing stuff on a news feed and flicking through, and they're thinking, I need to look like that. And it's not real, and I think even you and I were discussing the other day, like, I've been doing some comp work over the last few years, and I'm moving out of that. And I think one of the whole reasons why I even got into it was to simply say that I've done it and I've done the process, and to also expose the fact that it's not real. Like, it's a 48-hour window that I look like I'm on stage. I don't walk around with abs and veins and all those sorts of things. So sort of just pulling back the layers on that, because it's complete crap. And it's putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people, men and women. There's, sure it's the same in a lot of ways for guys, but social media stuff is pretty hectic. Just all of that sort of pressure that it's putting on young people, in a sense, to fit in a box. So it's pretty cool now that there's a lot of people, finger in the air, giving the bird, saying, no, I'm not going to conform or try and fit into a box or anything like that. So there is positive and negative to it, but it's so broad and it's such an emotional fueled area that it affects everybody in their everyday life, because it's everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to touch on this element of psychology, because you mentioned it before. So what was your inner voice telling you when it's not what telling you, but what was your inner voice saying around the time that you had an eating disorder? What were those thoughts that were coming up?
So, being fairly young and trying to find my feet in the world anyway, and this is before social media, so different, but peers and again, trying to be a certain way, I guess, and look a certain way and fit in and all of those. So I guess it's a lot to do with self-worth and that conversation that you're having with yourself. And through the years, it's not like an eating disorder is a mental illness. It's, if I look back in the conversation and the lengths that you go to be thin, or to exercise harder or train harder, or to get that goal, it becomes an illness. And it's one that it's consuming and it takes over, and it's really tough. So it's one of those things where in the moment, I think you're telling yourself a story that you've got it under control, you know what you're doing, and it's all those sorts of things, when in reality it's not. For me, it was very much about the control. Like, the external environment for me was out of my control. So it was the one thing that I could control and have on lock and load to sort of do and be what I wanted to be. So, a lot of that. But really, if you're pulling back the layers, the eating side of it is really got nothing to do with the actual issue for me. It had a lot to do with that story that I was telling myself, and my self-worth and all those sorts of things. So it wasn't until I started pulling back the layers and actually changing that story, because it was BS, but it was only me that can change that story. Started telling myself and rewriting the data attached to all of those things. It was only then that, it's a long process, and you come out the other side and go, right, okay, this is actually what it was about.
Yeah, and it's a shame though that the scales is becoming the primary focus on a goal. But in reality, I mean, that's why it's hard. It is a grey area to talk about, because I've had a lot of clients in the past, like, they just say to me, I want to lose 5 kilos. I want to lose 3 kilos. And I say to them, if you stayed the same weight, but you might, if you stay the same weight, but you could do 20 more push-ups in a row, or something like along those lines, like a simple goal, would you be happy? And they're like, yeah, I wouldn't even care about the weight. So it's never, subconsciously, it's never about the weight. If they lost the 5 kilos, and I said to them, okay, if you dropped the dress size and you were in your optimal dress size for you that you feel comfortable with, not necessarily what other people think, would you be happy? And they said, yeah, it's that's what I would be happy. So it's never really the actual weight, is it? As you were
No,
talking about before.
100%. And it's really interesting when you start having that conversation, because and through the years I've got all these mentors and people that I learn from, and one of a good friend of mine, Emma, she this is her line of work and has been doing it for 15 years, and one of the best things that I got from her was it's this conversation of weight. Can we stop talking about weight?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly
it's
right.
almost like that for the brain and whatever. It's almost like saying to someone, don't think of the color blue. What are you going to
Yeah,
do? Instantly, you're going to think of the color blue.
you're
It's
exactly
that
right.
discussion when you shift it away from that number on the scales, and because a lot of people attach worth to that. And and
Mm.
I've stood in front of rooms of women, and sort of had that conversation and sort of said, okay, can anyone guess how much I weigh
Mm.
right here now? And
Yeah.
it ranged from 45 kilos, 50 kilos,
Mm.
up into the 60s. Someone said 73. So
Yeah.
you're looking at a span of like 20 kilos plus in this conversation.
Yeah.
And then that question of like, okay, so what does it mean to you with attaching that number to me? Does it
Mm.
change me as a human? So it doesn't, but we put so much pressure on ourselves to be a certain number, because I think there's been this huge amount of time that everyone, especially women, have been told, do more, do more, do more, do more, eat less, eat less, eat less, eat
Yeah.
less, and it's attached to that number.
Yeah.
And so it's really cool that there's a lot of different training and styles, PTs,
Mm.
lots of people out there with a voice now saying, like, get rid of the scales,
Mm.
and train to move and feel well. And you see all the quotes and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Strong is now the cool thing and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
without attaching a label to it, or it about being a six pack or anything like that,
Yeah.
changing the conversation about exactly what you're doing. Would you, if you shift your focus onto a different dress size, or the ability to do 10 push-ups, or
Yeah.
and that being the focus, it just automatically changes that conversation that
Yeah.
you yourself. So
Yeah.
without it being even recognized in a sense, it's happening in a normal PT session. And I think that's where PTs now are getting sourced out, because it's the experience that they're having, and it's a subconscious shift from being, oh, this is what you weigh, let's do your measurements, let's see where you're at, to, well, how are you feeling? Where are
Yeah.
you at? Did you
Yeah.
just nail an extra chin up or an extra
Yeah.
push up? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And stepping into that space, and that's really, really cool, because it
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, I agree, and I strongly believe that. Yeah, because I have an example. Like, I have one client. She was beautiful. She's only a young girl, right? And she had an amazing body, and she just kept saying to me she wanted to lose more weight. I'm like, what? Where did this come from?
Yeah.
And I try to switch her focus and what we were just talking about then, and it actually really worked. Even though she was anxious and then she did overcome adversity, she felt a lot better. And then she did drop a couple of kilos unintentionally from that, because she said to me, I can't run more than 400 meters. I go, okay, cool. Well, we're going to run a kilometer together. And she's like, I can't run a kilometer together. We're running a kilometer. I'm doing it with you. So we end up doing that, and we ran a kilometer. And I go, okay, this is your goal. Your goal is not to focus on losing weight anymore. Your goal is to enter into the city to surf tomorrow. And I go, I don't ask questions.
I love
And
it.
she only had about a 3 or 4 week preparation. Now there was a lot of stress and anxiety coming up. And that's normal, But
Yeah.
the thing is that she overcome that barrier and she ran the city to surf within a month, and that was such an amazing achievement. And that whole process, I'm not saying I was a magical magician or anything like that, but that whole process, what I got to see was that her focus wasn't shift for a weight. It was actually shifting on how I can achieve this goal. And by the end of the goal, she didn't even really care about the weight. And she lost 3 kilos naturally because you're going to lose weight running 12 or 14 kilometers in a row. But she had that achievement. Now she can draw upon that experience in the past. And I thought that was a very, very valuable tool. And it's just touching on what you're saying as well. And that's where I feel, me personally, I think we need to go. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. It changes um, the whole training and the fitness world when we start having a different conversation with our clients. And gone are the days, I think, where or hopefully, for so many years, group exercise and all that, it had the PT or the trainer up on a stage with a microphone and they're the superstar. Where
Yeah.
when you go into a space of changing that and the client every single day that they walk in, they're the superstar. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And shifting that whole that conversation, and then they do it without even realizing, and it's refreshing. And so many trainers like you talk to, and they don't even realize they're doing it, which is really cool,
Yeah.
because they've got different goals as well. And so many people, train with their clients and do all of that sort of stuff. So it allows them to sort of move and shift their clients in a direction it's completely different, changes the whole outlook on stuff. And those clients are getting all the results, but the actual headspace that they go into exercise, training, and all that, because the file attached quite often to training and food and all that is generally deprivation and flogging yourself and like it's got to stop.
Yeah.
It's over, and
Yeah.
you don't need to be like that. So it's really, really cool that they're yourself and so many people now are doing that sort of work with their clients,
Yeah.
and like so many PTs don't even realize they're doing it. So it's
Yeah.
almost that light bulb moment where things are shifting
Yeah.
and it makes it better, so much better.
It does make it better. And we're touching on this element of that eating disorder that you were talking about before. Just out of curiosity, how did you pull yourself out of that? Because that's just such an amazing thing to do, to recognize that you had that disorder, as you say, and then pull yourself out of it to have an amazing journey to have a competition, go into competitions, and then even owning your own F45 gym and doing all these amazing things. So there's definitely from like there's a great story there. So how'd you pull out of it?
Yeah, it's funny, you sort of, there wasn't, I think quite often when you go through some tough stuff or whatever, you expect a light bulb moment or this, ray of light coming. It wasn't. It was a process. And the biggest thing for me, without, I guess, looking back on it now and even having this conversation, one of the things was, shifting that mindset and checking in with myself emotionally and mentally. I saw a photo of myself because up until that point, very much in denial and didn't share the fact with anyone that I was suffering so bad. And it's almost like you live a double life because you have the life that, you share everyone, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm whatever. And then there's the real you that, each day, like you obsessing about food or a weight or whatever it is and trying to hit that goal. I remember hitting about 38 kilos, which is pretty skinny, and being really sick and seeing a photo of myself. And it sort of shocked me because it wasn't about the fact that I was so thin or anything. It was because I looked so hollow as a human. So for me, that was obviously a bit of a throat punch that I needed at a young age. I was like, okay, now let's check in. So that process started. And the biggest thing for me, I guess, because when you do have an eating disorder, your body stops working. My digestive system didn't work. I was losing hair. My skin was atrocious. All the girly stuff that goes on, none of it worked. And I felt horrid. So I remember waking up one day a few years later and, obviously the side effects of your body not working properly and feeling really crap. And going to work that morning, I actually thought to myself, if I can't do this anymore simply because of how I feel, like I'm not going to make it if I don't do something about this, because if I have to spend the rest of my life feeling this awful, like as in my body, emotion, the headspace, all of it, I don't actually want to do it. Yeah. So I sourced out a naturopath and I got heaps of help. I got a naturopath to help my body start working properly. And, it took a good couple of years. And this is one of the things with the food conversation. It wasn't an 8-week challenge. It wasn't a 12-week detox. It wasn't any of these, here's a window of time that you've got. It was small mental changes. So, and this is what I say to my clients now, if, they're wanting to lose weight or whatever, but shifting that conversation rather than it be, okay, you have to turn into a food weighing, scale monitoring Nazi. It's like that small incremental change. So if you haven't eaten breakfast for 2 years, eat breakfast. That's it. Like for 4 weeks, just eat breakfast every day, and then introduce another, whether it be drinking water or moving every day or the small incremental changes. Because for me, it took about 12 months. 12 months of small incremental changes, creating habits and things that were realistic and long-term goals for me to be able to change to, being 2 years down the track and being a completely different human. Like it's, we have this big thing of, I'll never change. I won't be able to hit that goal. You can do anything. And that's the really cool thing. You can change your whole world. But it just takes a bit of time, depending on data file attached to it, the damage, or, even the fact that it's just a simple habit of a daily, routine. It just takes time and being kind to yourself in that process, because I think we generally, you're so hard on yourself to reach a goal or smash out a session or, lose the weight, whatever it is, when realistically, if you go into it with, you would never treat your friends like that. You wouldn't speak to them like that. So it's, practicing like kindness to yourself. Like and that's the thing, going back to that breakfast thing, like when your body's out of balance, if you've been drinking 8 liters of Coke a day, your body's in a bit of a balance. And then, the psychology of the diet industry and all the rest of it is on, Monday you start, I'm not going to drink any caffeine. I'm going to eliminate all sugar. I'm going to exercise 5 times a week, twice a day, and drink 7 liters of water and do all this sort of stuff. And in 8 weeks, I'm going to be a completely changed human. Not one part of the human body goes, amazing, let's do that. Like, it's not going to happen. So, and that's the thing. So, say it was you're drinking 8 liters of Coke a day, like, and you rip it all out, that balance, all the human body wants to do is be back in balance. So you got to treat a bit of kindness and go, okay, well, 7 liters of Coke a day to start. That helps. And those small mental changes. So that was probably the most powerful thing for me, was being taught the small incremental changes. And because someone else was telling me what to do, it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a whirl. Someone was, pretty much prescribing me, okay, for 2 weeks, this is what we need to do. You need to do this. And sort of focusing on those small things. It wasn't discussed or told to me, but, that process. And again, it was about feeling well, because, and that's the thing, so many people feel rubbish.
Mm.
So you don't have to live like that. You can make things better. And quite often it's a slower process, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it works and it's real. So the long term effect of how you start to feel on the other side of that is like it's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah, and I completely agree with the being kind to yourself because, as we were talking about before, like marketing companies are pushing things on us that, it puts us in a box. We have to look like this and we're going to feel good. So it becomes the external factor or something external that's going to make me feel good. Now that's almost becoming a product of your environment a lot more where, if you take ownership of your own environment internally first, we hear a lot, it's a lot of buzzword like take take control internally, but if you do it with increments, as you were saying, and it's almost like setting a little agreement. Like I said, say to my clients all the time, and I've actually just written a book. I don't know if I've told you this. I wrote a book called the Humble Hero. So, and the reason why I bring that up is because this is a different goal off health. I always told myself I wasn't a good writer, so I set myself an agreement to start writing every day. And then by doing that, I've written a book now, and I feel so much better. And I've conquered that limiting belief that I have inside me. I think that message can be brought into a broad spectrum of health, wealth, and all sorts of things. And if you just set it like a little agreement that you want to conquer something that you feel like you're limiting on, and you really face that adversity, then you don't, never know where it could take you.
100%. And I think that's one of the when somebody tells you you can't, it's like there's nothing more fueling than to go, actually, yes, I can. And you
Yeah.
and you smash it out. And for like a lot of people, like maybe not a big goal, but one of the things that I do with my clients is like the small, and sort of checking in. So through like say we have a goal for 12 weeks to, I don't know, run something or chin ups or strength or even getting their food on track or whatever. And so one of the things I do now is so journaling. Now, some people, like if you like writing, can journal for hours and they love it and it's the way they express themselves. Other people like would literally they're like, oh my God, I'd rather punch myself in the face and have to write something to do each
Yeah,
morning.
exactly right. I was one of those people.
And then and that's okay too. Like you sort of, I'm
Yeah.
like, that's cool. Like whatever it is that you want to do, but with like the journaling site is just you just give them like a list of questions. So each morning, so they don't have to try and be because a lot of people think journaling it's like airy fairy smoking like incense in the background.
Yeah.
It's not. It can simply be did I sleep well? How's my body feeling this morning? Do I feel hungry when I wake up? Just some questions to check in with your body.
Yeah.
So even starting off writing, something simple like that can help change, that conversation that you're having with yourself, or that dialogue and setting yourself up with those small little things to start practicing something different. Because when you're in tune with yourself internally and how your body's moving and feeling and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit, um, you know, a lot of people hear the word spiritual or whatever and like think, oh no, but it's sort of like that's sort of the stuff that you can have a bit of traction to because um, it is getting in touch with how you're feeling and your body and all of that sort of stuff. But it's logical. Just bang, point one. Did I sleep okay? And it
Yeah.
can be as simple as yes, but
Yeah.
it's just that checking in with it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things I found. Like I've years of comp work and whatnot. It's a very rigid, structured 12-week program. You weigh your food, you weigh yourself, you have a coach, you do all of these sorts of things, and it's all very rigid, which is fine if you want to do a lock and load sort of scenario,
Yeah.
and it's for a short period. But I found like for myself, I was doing all this sort of work in a different field, and I wanted to sort of do a comp prep just to lean up a little bit
Yeah.
and get track. So I was doing all the right things. I was doing fasted cardio. All my food was spot on. And over about a 6 week period, I didn't lose anything. And I was like, whoa, because my
Mm.
body was quite used to being manipulated with, that sort of structure of training and dieting and stuff. So
Yeah.
I sat back one day and sort of thought, okay, well, what's going on? Like, why is my body not responding to this process that I know works for me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, right, okay, so I got rid of the scales and changed the process by doing that. I started journaling. I kept all my food the same. I trained the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept on track with it all. The only two elements that I changed were, got rid of the scales, so I wasn't weighing myself each day, and I started journaling. So I'd get up in the morning, have my coffee and
Yeah.
greens drink and all my like bits and pieces, and I'd sit there for 5 minutes and journal.
Yeah.
I would say, how my body was feeling, did I sleep well? Even put in there for me personally, it was really, really important to write things, 3 things that I was grateful for. Clients, my working environment, my home life, whatever it was, just to sort of, have that affirmation and recognize all the positive things and how my body was feeling, all that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
and then I weighed myself at the end of 12 weeks and I'd lost like more than what I'd expected or wanted, and I didn't recognize it. And that's the only thing that I did different, was acknowledge how I was feeling. So
Yeah.
it changed everything when you are internally sort of sort of recognizing and honoring that in a sense. It's
Yeah.
really
Yeah, and it's a self-awareness thing, isn't it? You become self-aware, and I think that's what the game is. Because if I become self-aware on knowing what I'm eating, how I'm talking about myself, to other people, like if I'm aware of that, then then you have the ability to change things as well. And I think that the journalism, like writing a journal, is such a powerful thing. And I had my own little process similar to yours, my own little success story, and it was a bit of a failure as well. I actually, like because I used to play rugby league, and the last couple of games of rugby league I ever played, I was playing in a competition, and we were leading into the grand semi-finals or grand finals. I was starting to get a lot more anxious, and I just started to write down every day. I wrote down like 6 to 8 to 10 times a day. I feel so grateful for this opportunity to be in the side and playing along these people. I feel so grateful that I'm in the grand final. I said that already, like before it even happened, and I just kept writing that down. It was a bit of a different thing. Like I almost was a bit cheeky and saying, "Oh, it feels so grateful to be in the grand final" before I was even in it, and I made the grand final.
but it's so true.
But then I stopped writing it the week of the grand final, and we lost.
So the whole team
Oh,
blames
man.
you.
Yeah, the whole team blames me. That's right. there is some power in there, but what I was feeling is like the first couple of times when I was writing things down, I felt stupid. Like it was like I had the picture of my mind, like I was having the incense, and I'm like writing down my deepest, darkest feelings. It didn't have to be that. I was just simply just writing down, like, yeah, I feel good today, or I feel like this, but I feel grateful for the opportunity to blah 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 for these things in my life. And then I'd have to write it a few times. I don't know why. I just had to do it. Maybe it was a bit of an OCD thing. So I had to write it a few times down, and then after the 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day it took me, I felt a lot more, self-aware, and I felt a lot better about myself internally. So when I'd go to training, I felt confident, I was bubbly, and that's what the things I was grateful for. So yeah, there's definitely a great strong thing in the writing things down. So and just and the element of appreciation and being grateful
Yeah.
is it's such a strong, powerful tool. I mean, I spoke to Mark Edmondson. He's a ex rugby league player and an international rugby league player for England. He's a peak performance coach, and he was chatting to me about being, having love in things again, and they're coming from an ex NRL player, putting love back into your health. and
Yeah.
into your body and stuff like that. And he says it through that attitude of gratitude, which comes up so much, and we all know this. But then to actually do it and go through that process, it's such a life changing event. And he says, with his clients, he was talking to me about, the love they have, for when they're eating and when they're cooking, like they just when they're packing meatballs. Because I was telling him I was half Italian, like Italian background. So he goes, when your nonna makes the meatballs, she just packs them down and she puts love into everything. And they're the ones who are having that longevity in their life. We're wondering where that longevity is coming from, and then they're just putting a simple love back into food, back into life, back into everything. So I think that journalism things, it starts with that if we're not on that same path. So
100%. And I think the other thing with it as well is if you're, having that conversation internally, or, putting love back into it, or any of those sort of practices, when you are doing that, you without even realizing start shutting out, all the rubbish that is noise around you. So you might not pay as much attention to the billboards or the gloss or the skinny girl on a cover of a magazine, or the buff bloke at a gym, or whatever it is, because you're like, oh, that's not my story. Like,
yeah,
I'm off to my own thing. I'm like packing meatballs and loving it, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the biggest things that I always get told from one of my biggest mentors is stay in your lane.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly right.
you're in your lane, just stay in it,
Yeah.
because I'm like known for getting distracted for things I'm like, oh, what's over here? And all of a sudden I'm off my path or whatever. So it's that sort of checking in, and it keeps you in your lane and doing your thing, and all the noise starts to drift out, which makes a massive difference to then again that story, how you're feeling, how you're moving, all that sort of stuff. So whether it be exactly that, putting some love into your cooking, or writing stuff down, or it's taking ownership of your own space, and and that's pretty awesome, because that's empowering. For a lot of people, being in a position where they're taking control of certain aspects, whether in their training, in their life, in their work, anything like that whole self-love movement is it starts with self-discipline. So it might be simply writing 3 things down. Self-discipline then changes into self-respect. Self-respect creates self-worth, and then it evolves into self-love. So if you're not into the reading books and chanting under the moon and all the rest of it, it's a simple and logical way that it sort of rolls out, and it just starts with something little, and all of those sorts of things. So if you're on that path and sort of going through it, at the end of it, you're going to be a more like a happier, healthier version of you, and and mentally and emotionally, that's is so important. Like, for you to evolve and grow and feel amazing, you need to be in check with all that stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a subject that we could talk about for hours. So we've touched on the life before and the life after with psychology. You told me about you entered into competitions and these sculpting competitions. So how did you train for something like that? Do you think you could take elements of how they train and implement into everyday life?
Absolutely. I think, for me, because I came out of a phase of I no longer had emotional attachment for food. So I was working with a coach, and everything was really structured. And I was really, really lucky, because my coach I still work with him. He's also an amazing human. So, he helped guided me into what I was chasing, which was a goal to get up on stage. And I spent 2 years basically eating, sleeping, and training. So, that was pretty massive. And this is where that conversation of the scales, like, I watched the scales go up and up and up as I built lean muscle mass, and probably being leaner than what I'd ever been and heavier. So that, in my, like, the mind I was like, what is going on? So, but the actual structure to it, I really liked because it was a bit like that, checking in like with myself, because someone was giving me the lock and load component of eat, sleep, and train. So at the time of my life was pretty crazy, like busy, lots of stuff going on, like most people. It was a really tricky part of younger part of my life. So it gave me routine and structure, which is what I craved. And most humans work really well with the routine, whether it be, going to work or whatever. It helped with all of that. So then going through the process for a couple of years, and then, going and dieting down and all the rest of it, I personally love the process of it. I love, watching and seeing the body grow, and you feel strong and all those sorts of things, and how I felt. Because people say to me all the time, I didn't have a drop of alcohol for 2 years, and I don't eat, even now, I don't eat, lots of different things, from gluten and stuff. Oh, don't you miss pasta or anything? No, simply because of how I feel. I still, don't get me wrong, I love a good, refeed, and I love going out, Ben and I, going and having a burger and a glass of wine. I love all of that, and I'm in that place and I enjoy it, and it's incredible. But the difference is, I guess, feeding and fueling your body to feel amazing, and that was the biggest thing for me. So the comp, I don't know if I'll ever compete again, because it's almost like I feel I've sort of, that process is done. If I was to do it, it might just simply be for the psychology side of it, for my own sort of research, but I don't have any desire, and it was never a desire of mine to look a certain way, because you're going into a sport. And this is probably one of the biggest things that trying to explain to a lot of young women, because they're seeing bikini models and stuff like that on Instagram and think, oh, I need to look like that to be worthy, or you're getting on stage to be judged, how you look. So it can be a really, really hollow sort of space to be in, if you're not going into it being just for you and the process and, the journey and all of that sort of stuff. Because it's tough, because people are literally marking you for how you look, which is really, there's no depth to that. So you've got to sort of detach from it, which can be really tricky. But there's definitely elements that I found really, really helpful through the process, that I've adapted to my everyday life, and understanding more to do with feeding and fueling the body. They're the two biggest things to train and perform and execute whatever it was that I was training for. Because, again, coming from deprivation and starvation and all those sorts of things, you can't eat carbs, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. Whereas you need carbs for brain function, number one. You need carbs to, if you want to lift weight, you need to refuel and replenish the body. So from eating 0 carbohydrates to, in my off season, eating a kilo of sweet potato a day or whatever, feeling amazing and performing and growing muscle and being lean and having all this energy and all that sort of stuff. There's all those sorts of things, learning about that space to adapt to an everyday life of, still I eat now to, complement my training and my lifestyle, because I'm up at, you'd be the same, at the crack of dawn before the 4 a.m., feet hit the ground and you're off. If I don't eat well and support myself that way in everyday life, there's no way that I would be able to perform in any way, shape or form.
Yeah. And I think that, that's such an amazing turnaround, though. That's what I like about you, because you come from that, 38 kilos that you didn't want to be judged, and you were judging yourself so much, and then you fell into that, you're saying, eating disorder, to the point where you get on stage in front of everyone actively wanting to be judged. So it's, and then It's
So, and like, and I'm, you
conquered
know,
a barrier, that's what I like about it.
but I think I didn't even realize. Oh, I just sort of maybe I can't even tell you what the original thing was like. Oh, I'm going to go and compete.
Mm,
I was surrounded by people that were sort of doing it, so I was probably an influence in a sense. But
mm,
guys that were sort of training that sort of style and stuff, and I thought, oh, that's interesting for the process.
yeah,
Sort of blind to the fact, like if I told you about the first time, like the comp world is so competitive and it's such a huge thing, and I had no idea. I literally was flicking through a magazine and was like, oh, there's a competition, I'm going to have a crack.
yeah,
And me being like, I guess at the time, oblivious, like head in the clouds, showed up at this. I didn't had no idea that you had special heels and special swimsuits, and you had this special tan and all this sort of stuff, which was just everybody knew about. And
yeah.
I rock up literally like in a normal pair of swimmers, going, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
what I'm doing here." And it was I just met a girlfriend of mine, like now a good friend. She was like, you need to come with me. And she helped me out. And it was atrocious. If you actually look, people would have been in the crowd thinking like, what's this chick doing? Like,
Yeah.
and then from there I actually came off and I was like, oh, I want to have a crack at this properly with a coach and a process, and I want to do well in it just
Yeah.
for, a goal, I guess, for training
Yeah.
coming, having absolutely no idea. I was sort of interested in it. So I didn't even do it thinking, oh, I'm going to be judged on it. It was just, I want to have a crack at this. Like, whether it be, running the city surf or whatever it is, I want to have a crack, and I want to do it well. So what do I need to do that? Get a
Mm,
BT, get a coach, whatever it is, and started that process. So a lot of the time, I think for a lot of us, when we're moving, and changing things or whatever, a lot of it is subconscious.
mm,
And there's a process to it, and it's been a long period of time shifting and changing. And it's in reflection that you look back and you go, oh, okay, now I get it.
yeah.
This why or whatever. So I guess the biggest message to a lot of people is if they want to feel different, if they want to look different, if they want to think different, all those sorts of things, it's more than doable.
Mm,
And so much courage in going into a vulnerable space of saying like, oh, like I need some help,
yeah.
or because you do feel exposed and it's scary and all that sort of stuff, but being in that vulnerable space, that's where all the magic happens. That's
Mm,
where you sort of go to the next level. It's where you can really change stuff. So
mm,
just having that courage of simply reaching out and saying, hey, I want some help, and picking things like the people that are helping you. Like if a PT, for instance, isn't feeding your goals and your mission, and you're just getting handed a diet, and every part of your essence is going, this doesn't feel good, I don't like it,
yeah.
take ownership of that and go, no thank you, because there is
Yeah.
a lot of amazing people out there that can help you, that will help you on your journey or whatever it is. And like what you were saying before, you sort of sometimes feel a bit silly, I guess, like whether it be writing stuff down or, sort of saying, oh, this is what I want or this is what I want to do.
Mm,
Don't. Like,
yeah.
go and face it. If I was, like, I look back on my life 10 years ago, it's it's like a different life.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change any of it. Like, there's probably, my parents are sort of thinking in a lot of ways, what the hell's this chick doing? She's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh, this way. But like now in my 30s, being like, okay, I'm probably the brokest but happiest I've ever been. And it,
Mm,
sort of because of the changes and the decisions and all of that. And it all started with that simply going, okay, I need to put my hand up and get a little bit of help because I can't do this on my own.
yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And when you're talking about physique and competitions and going down that path, I don't think to me as we were talking about before, it doesn't matter which path you go down. Just like my client who I got to run the City to Surf, you know. So, and there's been other clients that have entered into, you know, boxing events. I did my own boxing event, and you know, you learn through the process and actually seeing it through. You just get that sense of self satisfaction. It doesn't become about money. Like we are driven about money, and you're saying like, and joking around like it's as happy as ever been, but the brokest ever been. It doesn't matter about the money that you have. It just matters about, you know, seeing something through to the end. You know, and then what you like about it is that you enjoy the process of everything, and that's what we've got to get used to. You know, I think that, you know, enjoy the process of, you know, even this summit. Like this summit just was in my head, and then, you know, just getting it out there. It's just it's a process in itself, and there's different forms. I think that what we got to do is that the problem is that it's similar with body transformations over that 6 to 8 week period, that, you know, people, you know, get it, they don't realize that they get addicted to the process of doing it. So they keep yo-yoing. And that's where I feel as though that yo-yoing starts a little bit, because they've done it. It's like, hooray, I'm celebrated. And they love that feeling of, you know, going, struggling and going through that whole 8 week process. And then at the end of it, they're like, oh, well, I don't know what to do with myself. So they go back again. So I think that, you know, it's either doing something that's a little bit bigger. What I'm gathering is doing something a bit bigger than actually just losing the weight, like entering a competition, running a marathon, and then just continuously changing the way you approach your health and fitness. It could be something small, like, you know, I just want to work on for the next 6 weeks handstands. I want to do a 1 minute handstand in a row. Like, it doesn't matter as long as you're just going through something just a little bit different, that's challenging, and you can formulate a new self awareness and new self growth.
100%. And I think one of the biggest things, and it's very much, you know, a big thing we constantly hear about as well, is always chasing. And I listened to a podcast and had a conversation with one of my girlfriends a few weeks ago about, it's called Chasing the Dragon. You know, we're always chasing, you know, the biggest and best, like whatever it is, whether it be self-awareness or whatever. And quite often, so people think, oh, like shifting a goal or changing something has to be this huge thing, like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon in Berlin. Oh, it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be like what you're saying. It could be a minute handstand. It doesn't matter what it is, you know, and there's nothing that isn't important and valid and all those sorts of things. So that even, I think, bringing it back in a sense of just being in the moment instead of all the of out here where we think we should be or want to be or whatever, these huge goals, and sort of bringing it in a little bit and going, well, what do I actually want to do? I want to be able to hit a bag for a minute straight. Amazing.
Yeah,
I want
exactly.
to, you know, run, you know, around the block or 2Ks or the City to Surf. Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to do a cooking class. Great. Whatever it is. Anything, even stuff like through a process, quite often it'll be about going and learning. So whether it be putting yourself into a class or, you know, whether it be cooking or, you know, like a photo, you know, work or anything, it doesn't necessarily, you're feeding yourself and your, you know, everything that you are in the essence. So everything, it's a domino effect. If you're feeding all of that, then it'll come back in your health and your wellness and all of those things. So it's super important.
Yeah, and I've been trialing this element of being a health hacker. Like I don't,
Sounds a bit creepy, but
yeah. I just want to cover it now. It's not a creepy thing, all right, to be a health.
I love
it. So what it is this essentially just picking a certain competition and fast tracking it and seeing it through to the end. And it's mainly, if you don't accomplish the goal, I mean, it's not like we do obviously want to accomplish it. Like you want to go to Berlin and run the marathon. It's booking it, and actually, even if it's like, okay, the Berlin, you know, marathon is in 3 weeks away. I can get there in 3 weeks. Book the event right now, and then see what happens in that process. And I like, there's been a few different ways I've done that. Like I accomplished a marathon in 28 days. I don't know if I told you this. So I had no experience of running a marathon, but the reason why I did it is because I told myself that I couldn't run more than 4 kilometers in a row. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do 41 Ks. I'm a male. I'm pretty stupid. I could have just run around the block a few times, done 4 Ks. But what I gathered from that afterwards, I mean, I didn't do the best time in the world. I even stopped doing during the race. But it was the fact that I got to see it through to the end, and I pushed it my own barriers, and I come from that now, and I go back to that 4 kilometer run. I'm like, 4 kilometers, I've done 41 Ks, and I think that what people can get, I guess the lesson is that people can gather their own self growth and draw upon previous experiences to propel them forward in the future. I think that was the smartest thing I ever said. No, I'm usually a joke around guy, but that's like there is an element of truth to that, because I also did a boxing fight in like 4 or 5 weeks, and I did that because I hate getting punched in the face. I hate fighting. I'm not. I, my brother was always seen as a fighter, and out of us two, he would always protect me, and I wouldn't feel as I'd protect anyone. So I wanted to conquer that fear of being punched in the face, and I know it sounds really stupid to do that, but it's a male. It's probably a guy.
It makes sense, yeah.
It's a
You're a
guy
boy,
thing,
yep.
So after that month, I mean, in that month period, I went in the boxing ring and I fought and I won. So now I go into a situation where if anyone wants to go to a boxing session or anything, I feel comfortable doing that. Where I was really anxious before of a simple boxing session, and and they're the elements. Like I'm practicing in different sports, and the whole message behind it is not just to conquer a goal, because it doesn't take away from the people that train 6 months to a year to 2 years for a marathon. That's not what it's doing. What it's doing is seeing, hey, if you can push your own limiting beliefs and then fast tracking it in a way by doing it in a competition and seeing what you learn through the process. And that's what we've been talking about today.
Yeah, 100%. And it does. It's sort of, and that's the thing, whether it be a little thing or a big event or whatever it is exactly that. You're setting yourself up. So again, because even that whole self-love sort of, and not necessarily what a lot of men would go around and say, oh, I'm on a journey of self-love. Like I get that. But
yeah.
in your way of going through, oh, I'm going to go and get punched in the face, is the same thing, but that starts off with self-discipline. So the what you have to do for that fight is go in and do the training or whatever. There you go. The self-discipline, obviously boxing's got huge discipline elements attached to it, and then it fits into the self-respect, because you're like, cool, like I've had this fear of being punched in the face, I'm nailing this, like even punching a bag and whatever. And then that creates this self-worth, like, oh, like without the ego or anything like that. Like everyone's got ego and there's a healthy element to it, but being in a space of like, this is really awesome. Like I feel amazing for achieving this goal of punching a bag or whatever. And then you go to the ring day, and you get punched in the face and you're like, amazing. Like that is self-love. A very masculine way to do it, but the same sort of.
There's a lot of testosterone involved there.
Absolute, but it's legit. Like it's say for you had a bit of a fear attached to it, so that's incredible. So, and I think sometimes like one of the things that I love about like the work and the industry we're in, for me, working in a space where I have clients say to me, like, whatever we're training for, small, little, big, whatever, and them say, I feel amazing. This is the one, a lot of mums, like, it's incredible. It's the most, I don't have children, and I just see these women, I just think they're incredible. Like, it's such a selfless, amazing job that they're doing. And it literally exercise, which for a lot of people is punishment or whatever, it's literally the only time of the day that's theirs. Like, to me, that's like, I'm like, you're amazing.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that they come and they share it with us, training or whatever, for them to come out of it and say, love this. My husband says that I'm happier and all these sorts of things because it's for them. It's feeding their needs and their goals and all those sorts of things. So it might be simply for a busy mum. I just want 45 minutes without something like, look, like mums, they crack me up. Like they can't
Yeah.
even pee without a kid knocking on the door.
Yeah,
So
exactly right.
own a space and then come out of it and say, I feel amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And it's so
Yeah.
awesome. So,
Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, it's recognizing that, that you can. It's recognizing that it's just that self-awareness,
yeah,
and it's what your body needs and what your body wants right now, and just, yeah, as I said, just recognizing it. So and that's what brings me to my next thing. Like, we've bought into we've talked about the eating disorder and the journey through it, and then afterwards and going down the sculpting path, and now you're owning your own F45 franchise in Melbourne. Why is the F45 model working so much, and why did you go down that path?
um, well, it's pretty amazing. It's sort of the growth and everything in 4F45 is awesome.
Mm,
It's like sort of taking over in a sense. And I think one of the reasons, so for myself, like Ben and I, being in the fitness industry and all that sort of stuff, wanted to sort of look at something that we could invest in.
mhm,
So we've got another, like our friends and business partners decided to go down to Victoria and open up in Geelong.
mhm,
And so one of the things that's really, really appealing for us was F45 as a studio. Like you don't have mirrors,
mm,
there's no scales, there's none of that. So it's about a community.
yeah,
It's about people coming in and feeling amazing. So the actual process, so the exercises, and they do a nutritional portal and the 8-week challenges and all of that sort of stuff. Like that all, like it's tried, it's tested, and it works. But
mm,
the thing that is sort of amazing about it is people are coming into the space, and because it's all circuit training and functional movement, just simply being, the human body moving in, all the primal movements, but like the watered down version in a sense, because
mm,
anyone can do it.
yeah,
Super fit to coming back from rehab or just starting out, a new mum, whatever it is. It's all circuit based. So you're coming into a class and it doesn't matter
mm,
what level you're at. It's your workout and it's you just doing your thing. So
yeah,
we're really big on, like when people, because, and gyms can be really scary places. I totally
yeah,
get that.
yeah,
I'm a you have it. I like knowing where my machines are. I like
yeah, yeah,
knowing, where to go next and all that sort of stuff. So for
yeah,
people that are new to it, it can be incredibly intimidating. So
yeah,
in that first moment of somebody coming into the studio, they'll say quite openly, I'm a bit nervous or whatever. And it's like, okay, so don't be. You just
yeah,
do your thing. If you want to change something, we'll give you an alternative. If you need to pull back, no problem. If you need to have like a water drink, like break, no
mm,
problem. Like
yeah,
it's your space,
yeah,
and you want however you want to do it. It's
yeah,
your workout and your time. So, and I guess the biggest thing for me is like there's a place for mirrors and stuff like that for form and technique and all those sorts of things in a lot of gyms. But for this space, there's more trainers on and the classes are capped out.
mm,
So it's just about literally coming in and forgetting about. Doesn't matter if you're like wearing your pajama top
yeah,
or yeah, it's not about brands and the fuss and anything. It's about coming in, high-fiving at the end and going, amazing, well
yeah,
done,
yeah,
you're the star. So for me, like from in this industry, I think that's one of the reasons why it's nailing it. It's really, really successful. Like the guys behind it have really, sort of rolled it out incredibly well with all of that. They have really good music, like all the little things that create an experience. Like people are able to come in, own it, feel amazing, and have a bit of fun.
yeah,
And it's talking about like all the things that we need to like forget a little bit about like the weight and whatever. Because quite often I get asked all the time, like, oh, what do you lift?
Mm.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Depends on the like.
Yeah, exactly right.
If I feel strong, I'll lift heavier. If I'm
Yeah.
feeling a bit flat, I pull back. So
Yeah.
again, taking ownership in that space and people coming in and being able to do that, I love it. We have quite it's more women than it is men, and lots of people that are just sort of getting back into it, and you know they're doing their thing, and that to me, being able to share that space with them is really awesome.
Yeah, I was chatting to one of my mates. He owns a Snap Fitness 24/7 gym, and he was chatting about. I asked him a question on what does the future hold, and he said it's got to be what does the future hold for gyms and fitness studios, and he said the sense of community,
Yeah.
and enjoyment, and he said that's why F45 model is going so great at the moment because it offers that essence of buzz, atmosphere, and so it brings the fun and back into fitness again, which is good. I like that. I like that concept, and I think that's where we need to go. Just a place a space where it's a supportive space, not this. And it doesn't matter if you're the big guy, and then if you're a big guy and you train for years, and then you're a beginner trainer next to them, and you can train and support each other to help you both get fit. I'm all for that. I think that's a great way to train. It sounds like that's what F45 are doing well, and you're doing well within that.
Oh, and it is, and that's exactly what it is, and it's so cool that like these guys have rolled it out with all those sort of things. Not necessarily spoken about, but sort of that's the whole thing about it. People moving and feeling amazing, and they're killing it. They're doing
Mm,
really, really well, and it's taken off all over the world.
yeah,
And that's even the space that we've gone regional Victoria. And the community, it's only new down there, so it's only just sort of started to take off, and that's the biggest thing, community.
yeah,
The amount of people, and even I guess one of the biggest things for us is recommendations, and people coming through the studio is because their friends are telling them, like, come and try it. It's not about advertising and the hard sell or anything about that. It's them coming in and loving the space and then wanting it to share with their friends or family or partners or whatever. So, and it's heaps of fun. Like Ben
yeah,
and I, when we go to a class, like,
yeah,
hilarious. The two
yeah,
of us, slightly competitive, maybe,
yeah,
heaps of fun. And we always work out, like, come out of there because we'll just, fly under the radar and go and get casual sessions at other studios and stuff like that as well, just to get the training in. Because even for us, like, even for a PT, I love the style of training for me because I don't have to think.
yeah,
Like I'm on all the time, so I can literally go in, and away I go. I do the workout, like smash it out, I sweat, high five, and I'm out. And
yeah.
that's for Ben being like football background and getting his cardio in and all the rest of it,
Mm.
just smashing it out, and then giving me a hard time in the process, and then we're out of there, sort of thing.
And now look, he only gives you a hard time because he knows that you wear the pants in the relationship subconsciously.
Oh, he's gonna love that.
uh, yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. It's been an absolute pleasure sitting down with you, having a chat. I think there's great content and great quality of what you said, and helping people that are going through disorders and see the other side of it. Like it doesn't have to be that path forever. So it's been an absolute privilege to chat with you. We'll catch up soon again. But is there any final words of wisdom or any advice you can give girls out there?
My biggest thing would just, like, honestly be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Train and do all the things that you want to do. Chase your dreams.
Mm.
Like, I've got my head in the clouds 100%, and I believe in all that sort of stuff. So just start with even just that small little thing of being kind to yourself. The rest will come.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Having me, it's awesome.
Thank you.